Yo, what is going on, guys? Dr. Schwaz here. Welcome back to another Gears 5 tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the Brawler class in Horde and Escape. So, it says the Brawler is a force of nature. The Brawler brings their own powerful melee moves to the table and uses fire to decimate enemies. His ultimate ability is the Train, which leaves a trail of fire while moving. It can stagger and ignite nearby enemies. It's a very short ultimate, but highly effective at clearing large crowds of enemies. The Brawler's passive states that he can punch to stun enemies and melee while running to tackle. Killing enemies using the tackle also gives stim. In Escape, the Brawler is a super strong mobile class with tons of health and damage resistance cards to make him one of the top 3 classes in the game, especially since the class doesn't require ammo to be effective. In Horde, the Brawler is still a pretty good class as well, but I'd say his tankiness tends to fall off a bit since the enemies have significantly more health and are more lethal in Horde. There tends to be a lot more risk running a tackle/short range build, but it's still very effective. However, even the long range build, albeit lower DPS, can still be pretty effective on a master level. With all that said, let's move on to the skill cards. Alrighty, starting with All the Glory, it says burning enemies explode when killed, dealing 30% of their HP and damage to nearby enemies. This skill card is great to run in Horde and Escape since it maximizes the Brawler's DPS, allowing the class to dominate large groups of enemies with just a few tackles. It's a versatile card as well, working well with both the long-range rifle build and the short-range tackle build. As a disclaimer, when running with teammates in Escape, the damage from the All Glory explosion can damage your teammates, so be cautious of that. Otherwise, it's a great skill card you almost always want to run in Horde or Escape. Alrighty, Scorcher Mastery. It says deal 70% additional damage with the Scorcher. So if you're running a Scorcher-based build in Horde, this can be a good card to run in conjunction with cards like Glow and Slow to neutralize or slow down enemies. Personally, this is not a card I typically run as Brawler because I kind of find the Scorcher damage on Master difficulty to be a little bit underwhelming, and since the Brawler isn't resistant to its own burn damage, they end up damaging themselves in the process. In Escape, I would advise against this card since there are only 2 hives with the Scorcher, the Detour and the Warren. Alrighty, moving on to Pyromaniac. Burn damage dealt is increased by 100%. This is a good card to utilize if you are playing a long-ranged build in Horde where you will be damaging enemies from afar. The card pairs well with Play with Fire, which I'll be talking about next. This card doubles the base burning damage from 50 to 100 per tick. For escape purposes, this card can hurt the Brawler more than help because it increases the likelihood of an enemy like a Scion or Drone dying from the burn damage, denying the Brawler the ability to successfully tackle it again to regain the stim and health. Alrighty, with Play with Fire, active rounds give you a 30% chance to burn enemies. If you like the passive Brawler role, this is a great skill card for you. This skill card allows the Brawler to burn enemies from afar using active bullets. In order to maximize the bullets that burn, I'd recommend using an assault rifle with a high firing rate like the Lancer GL. The Claw and Hammer Burst work fine as well. Pairing this card with cards like Glow and Slow, Pyromaniac, and All the Glory can make playing the Brawler this way safe and effective to your team. Alrighty, Glow and Slow. It says enemies that are burning are 60% slower. This is a great support card to run in Horde, as it can help slow down large enemies like Scions, Wardens, and Bosses from infiltrating your base. It's like another form of stopping power to slow enemies down, and it pairs well with other cards like Play with Fire and Pyromaniac to supplement the long-range Brawler build. In Escape, I don't really prefer this card. However, I found this card really helpful on one hive in particular, the Warren. Because of all the GB mutators, this skill card came in really handy there. Moving on, Soothing Warmth. Health regeneration is 275% faster and has no delay on 2.5 meters from burning enemies. This can be a good skill card to run if you are running a Scorcher build in Horde or a Tackle build in Escape. However, I feel on a master level, the skill card is very underwhelming, since it doesn't seem to heal you fast enough from when you're within required range. Not to mention, when using the Scorcher, the Brawler can take damage from his own flames. Because of these reasons, I prefer the other damage resistance cards over this one for sure. Alrighty, Burn and Recharge. It says the Train ultimate ability recharges 6% faster for each enemy that is currently burning. This can be a great card to run if you're running a Horde or Escape map that has a longer recharge mutator to help you get your ult faster. The Brawler has a relatively fast ult charge of just over 4 minutes, so unless you're trying to get your ult back multiple times a wave or multiple times an escape run, I think there are more useful cards to run other than this one. Burn Boost, automatically active reload with 60% extra damage after melee killing a burning enemy. This is a great hybrid card primarily for Horde, as it pairs the long and short range Brawler builds together really well. Once you melee or tackle kill an enemy, you get an automatic active reload with a damage boost for whatever weapon you have equipped. This pairs beautifully with the Play with Fire card, which allows the Brawler to burn enemies via active rounds. So with this skill card equipped, the Brawler can cycle through burning enemies from afar and tackling them and continue that process. Alrighty, moving on to killing time. When the train ultimate ability is active, each kill increases ultimate duration by 2.25 seconds. This is a wonderful card to run in Horde, especially if you're going for an aggressive in-your-face tackle build. This card extends the ultimate duration by 2.25 seconds for every kill you get during it. One thing I like to mention is that this card does not stack with all the glory. The ultimate only extends off of kills from the initial tackle itself, not from the residual explosive kills via the All the Glory skill card, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, this is a super fun card to run in Horde. It is certainly high risk, high reward. In Escape, it's useful as well, but super situational depending on the hive. I have several gameplay clips of this card in action. Stay tuned. Alrighty, fuel tanks. It says carry 120% extra Scorcher ammo. This is a good supplemental card to run if you're running a Scorcher-based build in Horde. This increases the ammo capacity from 300 to 660. You can pair this card with Soothing Warmth and Pyromaniac to maximize the effectiveness of your Scorcher build. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Scorcher since it doesn't seem to have a very long range and it's easy to damage yourself with it. On a master level, it seems to be lacking in the DPS department as well, even with the extra damage. In Escape, his other health and damage resistance cards are much more valuable, and since there's only 2 hives that have a Scorcher on it. Alrighty, Inner Fire. When the train ultimate ability is available, take 35% less damage. This is a great skill card to run to increase the tankiness of this class. This is normally a card I run in Escape, as in that mode it's really important to have as much damage resistance and health as possible to ensure your survival. This card pairs well with Damage Dash and Perk Up in order to maximize the survivability of this class. In Horde, I prefer swapping this card out with Killing Time to maximize the Brawler's DPS. Alrighty, next is Perk Up. Max health and regeneration speed is increased by 60%. This is another card that can increase the survivability of the Brawler class. It pairs well with Damage Dash and Inner Fire to help maximize the Brawler's viability on Master. In Horde, it's basically 2 free perks in 1, which is awesome. I can't say no to that. This is a must-have card on higher difficulties since it allows a Brawler to endure encounters they normally wouldn't have survived. Alrighty, moving on to Torch Tackle. Tackle burns victims and deals 275% damage to already burning enemies. This is the high DPS card you always want to run, whether it's Horde or Escape. This card allows you to quickly take care of drones, scions, and large squads of enemies in the battlefield with ease. This card pairs great with All the Glory, as you can burn enemies, tackle them, and cause enemies to explode nearby. A very fun card to run for sure. Damage Dash. Damage is reduced by 40% while sprinting. This is a great tanky card to run in either Horde or Escape. This card is great because it allows the Brawler to evade fights and gain some damage resistance before moving on to tackle another group of enemies. This card comes in really clutch in situations where the Brawler has really low health and needs to evade a fight to get back to safety. Defensive Tackle. Gain 60% additional stim when killing an enemy with a tackle. Personally, I don't really use this card since the passive grants stim upon a successful tackle anyway. I think this is still a bot card that hasn't been fixed since this class initially launched way back in Operation 3, thus I think there are better cards to run than this one. Haymaker. Melee hits deal 215% damage and drones are stunned for longer. This is a fun beginner card to run as it helps you take down enemies like drones and scions easily. On lower difficulties, you can get away with the slow melee punch attack, or on higher difficulties, I think it's more beneficial and useful to always be tackling enemies to maximize your DPS and survivability. Steam Engine, 115% larger burn radius while the train is active. This card simply increases the burn radius of Brawler's ultimate so that he can burn enemies in a larger area during his ultimate. This can be a fun card on lower difficulties to increase the area of effectiveness of his burn damage. However, on higher difficulties, I think there are better skill cards to run than this one. Thrashball Pro, 60% less damage from melee attacks. This is a highly situational skill card that I like to run in Horde or escape maps, especially with mutators like more melee damage. I find this card especially helpful when you are being bombarded with jubies or small enemies, like on the Warren Hive, and need some extra resistance in order to survive and get back to safety. This card stacks well with damage dash, allowing you to sponge a melee hit from an elite drone and Scion on Master. Not a card I always have on, but it can come in clutch in certain situations, which is pretty cool. When it concerns score boost cards, if you're running a high score run in Horde or a timed run in Escape, you can equip the score boost and epic score boost cards to help you get more gears, coins, skill cards, leaderboard times, or whatever reward you may be seeking. So those cards are there for you for those reasons. Alrighty guys, moving on to Brawler's class builds. So if you prefer a short range tackle build in Horde, I would use these cards. All the Glory, Torch Tackle, Damage Stash, Perk Up, and Killing Time. This is a great aggressive build to keep the Brawler in his maximum DPS range for longer and have the survivability to do so. It's a very high risk and high reward, and it's a lot of fun, so feel free to try that build out. If you prefer a long range rifle build in Horde, I would run Play with Fire, Pyromaniac, Glow and Slow, Perk Up, and All the Glory. This is a great build to run if you want to play a more passive, relaxed Brawler role from a distance. To change things up, you could swap out Perk Up with Burn Boost to involve tackling some enemies to benefit your build, or you can swap it out, Perk Up with Inner Fire to increase your damage resistance since you won't be using your ult often in this passive setup. If you love using the Scorcher, I would run Scorcher Mastery, Fuel Tanks, Pyromaniac, Soothing Warmth, and Glow and Slow. This card stack can amplify the Scorcher's effectiveness, making the Brawler a great short-range support class. Feel free to swap out Glow and Slow and Soothing Warmth with Perk Up or Inner Fire, since those health and damage resistance cards come in pretty clutch on higher difficulties. So those are the basic Horde builds. So you got the Tackle Aggressive build, which is the first one I mentioned. Then you got the long range rifle build, which is the second one, and then the last one I mentioned was the Scorcher based build. As far as escape builds go, there is one general card stack I always run, and that is All the Glory, Torch Tackle, Damage Dash, Perk Up, and Inner Fire. This is an awesome middle ground between dealing damage and resisting damage that keeps the Brawler on his feet on higher difficulties. The only card I would typically swap out is Inner Fire, depending on the Hive. So in a Hive where I need longer ultimate duration to fight a large crowd of enemies like Jubies or Amagos, I'll swap it out with Killing Time. If I need extra damage resistance against melee damage, for example, like on the Warren with all those Jubi mutators, Thrashball Pro is a great alternative for that. Soothing Warmth can be a great handy alternative card too, since it gives you healing near burning enemies. And also on highs with longer recharge mutators, you could swap out Inner Fire with Burn and Recharge to get the Brawler's ultimate back faster as well. And that pretty much sums out the class builds. I'm going to summarize it in a slide here in a second. And now I'm going to briefly discuss the Brawler's perks coming up. Alrighty guys, moving on to Brawler's Horde perks. So he's got damage, ammo regen, feedback boost, and health. When the engineer gives the okay to perk, I usually start off with damage, which maxes at 50%. This applies to the base weapon damage and damage during the ultimate as well. Extra DPS helps a ton in later ways, so perking this first comes in handy. Next I like to perk ammo regen, which maxes at 100%. This resupplies ammo to all weapons, including assault rifles, and to the Scorcher as well if you run that build. This perk makes the Brawler class less reliant on a locker. Afterwards, I like to perk up the feedback boost, as that will increase the rate at which you get your ult back based on the damage you deal, so that the Brawler can use their ultimate more. Especially helpful in a build where you're running the aggressive tackle build, so you'll be using the ult a lot. Even if you're running a passive Brawler build, perking up the feedback boost perk is still useful because you'll have your ult even more often in case the team may need it in an emergency situation. Lastly, I like to perk up the health, which maxes at 50%, to keep the Brawler on his feet throughout the higher waves. If I'm running an aggressive tackle build, I'll typically perk this up earlier to ensure my survivability. But then again, it's more health, so it'll only help, right? That'll pretty much wrap up the Brawler tutorial, guys. Coming up, I have some Horde and Escape gameplay, showcasing all the different playstyles that I talked about earlier of this class. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this class tutorial helpful. And thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next video. Peace.
Yay! Woo! Yes! Take that! Fire on body! Woo! Yeah, baby! Fire! I need to reload!
All that. Nice. Sentry reloaded. Nothing to it. Cover me.
Dead and done. Hold your ass.
Good to go.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
Really? I'll never get tired of that. Sit down and think about it.
You're past your expiration date. It's done.
Sentry repaired. Keep that in the way.
Energy tapping. It's done.
Here I come. Drop one. Incoming flag.
Oh, yeah! Chewie spotted. Chewie incoming. Enemy marked. Chewie. Chewie spotted. Got you next time.